Hey everybody, welcome back for another Relationship Wednesday session. So again, we're talking about dealing with unforgiveness when it comes to heart management and relationships, because again, purpose, relationships, and purpose are all connected. So if we do not manage unforgiveness and deal with it properly, a lot of times we can move forward in our future relationships. You know, people call it baggage. You know, one thing I like to say is that if somebody cuts you, you can end up bleeding on somebody else. And a lot of times, and if you don't heal up the right way, then your blood gets on and mess up all the other future relationships. But we're talking about how it can paralyze you. So they may not have cut you, but you end up bleeding, getting your blood and your hurts and your issues all on somebody else. And then therefore you could tear up a good thing that God wanted you to have. But because I didn't know how to properly heal from it, then I didn't know how to. And sometimes we go through certain situations where it's tough, like it hurts, like it's. But we have to, like Michelle was talking about last episode, we have to make a decision to forgive, because I feel like I gotta say it's so dangerous not to, and I just think that we have to learn. So I give you another story that I think would be helpful, because again, I think that you never know what's going to be said for somebody, because even though there's so many great teachers on unforgiveness out there and forgiveness. I mean, I try to tell you, I've heard some great teachers. I mean, I've done some, where I felt like Spirit of God, but people still hold stuff. Like it's sometimes you never know what it's going to take for that person to actually let it go and move forward. Because sometimes when you feel the hurt and the hit of that particular person, and I'm going to tell you, the ones, sometimes, usually, the ones that we have the hardest to forgive are the people who got real close to our hearts. Usually those are the toughest ones. We're seeing like it take a little more time, meaning that could be a brother, a sister, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a husband or a wife, somebody who you roll with, who you consider a brother to the point where it's family, even though, you made it, like when those are the ones I feel like are the ones where the enemy uses to basically say, let's take those relationships and see if I can tag you on the level by where now they cut you with whatever their issues was, and then now you're up there bleeding on everybody else, where now you can no longer go into any future relationship with a healthy mindset. It's with a whole negative expectation and always accusing and just different stuff, because I didn't understand. And what happens is that once we do that, the main goal isn't the relationship. The main goal is our purpose, because for me, I've come to realize that our bodies are on timers, meaning that we're here for a purpose, we're here for a reason, and we feel most fulfilled when our purpose is accomplished. But it takes relationships to get us there. For example, if we want to fly to, let me say, it would be a great place to go. Let's say you want to fly to Jamaica. I'm not a pilot, but what we did was when we went to Jamaica, we had a car service pick us up so we didn't have to park at the airport. That's a relationship. We needed somebody to check our bags in. That's a relationship. We needed somebody to usher us up on the airplane. That's a relationship. There was a pilot we needed. That was a relationship. In other words, we couldn't get to Jamaica without relationships. Some people, Michelle went with me the whole way there and back, but then there were some people who were there for part of the journey. Once their part was done, and moved on. But we didn't hold any unforgiveness towards the next person. In other words, we check our bags in. No, they just, that's all they did. And, I know, don't help me. Fine, I get my own seat. Thank you. It's like we now going to be mistreat everybody else. No, we don't take it personal, because we understand some people are for certain parts of the journey. Mm-hmm. And so, but the thing is, we understand it. But my whole point is that, so when we understand the big picture, like when we talk about, I'll go into spiritual warfare. When we talk about spiritual warfare is a lot of times what's going on isn't what's really going on. Meaning that a lot of times you think it's about your car note or your bills or this and that. Usually there's a bigger play at work by where Satan wants something bigger than what's really going on. And so sometimes we're thinking the small game of this moment, but no, they're thinking the big game of, doing more damage on something else later on. So that's why you have to be aware when it comes to, unforgiveness and stuff. It's not about that. It's about something bigger that the enemy wants. And if you don't realize that, sometimes it'll keep us from making the decision to let it go and move forward. And knowing that God is bigger than anybody's decisions, even our own decisions, that God can still make it work. And I think sometimes our unforgiveness make us short-sighted, thinking that what they did is God, and where we can't recover and we can't come out of that because of whatever. And I say that based on our behavior and our activities, as if they're the only person in this world. They're the only ones that that God created that can give us what we need. It's like we can kind of get short-sighted that way. But anyway, so here's the story I wanted to share. So what happened was, I listened to a minister. He was talking about he has a strong healing ministry, and he goes around and he heals so many great people. And and I don't want to say he does it, but we know it's the Lord working through him. But so it was this one lady. She came up on a walker, and she could barely move, and he prayed for her, and she got healed. Then by the time she got back out to her car, the symptoms came back, and it got worse. So she went back in there, and so talked to the minister. Said, "Yeah, I felt the healing, but once I got back to the car, it came back on me and it got worse." He said, "What happened was we treated the symptom at the root." So then he said, "Okay, let's pray again." So he asked him about the Spirit of God, and the Spirit of God showed. He said, "You had some unforgiveness towards your heart. You got some hate in your heart, unforgiveness in your heart." Against, and she said yes. She said, and he said, and then she said, "Her mind, I know exactly who you're talking about." And so the story was that when she was younger, she met a guy who gave all these promises and said that let's get married and all that, and she was kind of reluctant, so she ended up getting pregnant by this guy. But after she got pregnant, the guy left her to pretty much fend for herself and her daughter, and pretty much she had to feel the weight of the guy leaving her, and then now stuck to raise this child by herself. So pretty much a straight out, all out betrayal. So that she never got rid of, and basically because of that unforgiveness she held, it actually created the issue that she was having in her body, and she couldn't get that fixed. Even though it was praying, it would give a temporary solution, but it wouldn't truly fix it. So once the minister shared with her, and she said, he said, "You gotta forgive." He said, and she said, "You know what?" She forgave him and let it go. And once that, her healing came, her sickness never came back. Because the unforgiveness, which is spiritual, not everything's that way, but we're just speaking of the dangers. It may not, it hurt show up physically, but other people it can show up relationally, where you're in this cycle. Why can't I keep a relationship? It seems like, why can't I stay in a relationship? What's going on where I keep we're off to a good start, something happens, it breaks down, and I'm on to another one. Cycle continues. Because there's probably something in your heart that has not been dealt with that won't allow any new relationship to live long term. And that's the dangers of us holding on to those things. So I guess, Michelle, what's your thoughts on that? And I'm sure you've been through those type of betrayals before, and making sure that you don't allow those things to, I guess, mess with your future perspective about future relationships.
Well, one thing that unforgiveness can also do is it can cause you to now see, let's say, for instance, okay, you were, like you said, the betrayal, a guy betrays the woman, and then now she sees all guys as this way. Oh, guys are this way, whatever. So that right there, because you didn't forgive, now you got it made you start thinking of all guys this way, and therefore every time you could get to a good guy, but because you now have this way of thinking of, oh, guys are this way, now you can't even let a relationship happen because you already preconceived this person as a certain way because of the unforgiveness you have for someone else.
Okay, so let me work that a little bit. So here's why we do that. Because there's this thing called law of representation. Mm-hmm. So we believe that when it comes to the tithe, Why do we tithe? Because it represents all, like when God told them don't touch the tree. Why? Because the tree represented their whole relationship with God. So it's called in Genesis, the law of first truth. Meaning if you read the book of Genesis, you can find all truths in scripture through Genesis. Because the law of first truth. So usually that's why the law of first truth is the hardest to break, because it's the first thing that sets the tone for everything else. Because it's called the law of representation. And what that means is if one guy hurt me, you're the representation for all guys. If one business failed, it represents all businesses failing. But again, the thing is God established the principle, but it seems like the enemy uses that and what's the word I'm looking for? Contaminates it. And where now the law of first truth don't work good for me, it's working bad for me.
Right.
So
Right.
for example, when Jesus is the firstborn of many brethren, it's the law of first truth, meaning that because Jesus died, all died. You know what I'm saying? Because Adam died, all died. I was saying that's the whole thing, right? The law of first truth, where everything happens through that first law of representation. So if the way it worked was when Adam sinned, all have sinned. When Jesus became sin and made righteous, all can become made righteous through that law of representation. Like even when we see Jesus or when we go to heaven, we do it through representation. We don't go in our name, we go through law of representation. So since God established that principle, now the enemy says, I'm going to take that to put you on the cycle of now allowing your law of representation to work from the negative from the positive.
Right.
And the reason why I think that's why it's I think it's hard for us to break sometimes, because it's a spiritual law that God created.
Yeah. See that.
And so I just see where now we have to realize, and I guess what I'm saying is we have to distinguish the difference, where I can't allow this event to become the representation for my future events.
Right, for everybody. Yeah. And again, being able to forgive helps that. If you can forgive it, then you're not attached. Because just because this happened here doesn't mean it's going to happen with this next person and the next person. So yeah, that's
right. So I guess then, and finish your point. So what would you say that, like you said, if this guy hurt, all guys say, so what would you say to not allow yourself to get wrapped up in that cycle of letting this person become the representation for other, people moving forward?
well. I know that everybody's different. I don't lump everybody into, the same thing. Like that's the same thing with racism and all that kind of stuff. Racism comes from, you see one person and you think everybody is a certain way. It's like, no, it's racism or just not liking a certain anything. It's because cats. Some people don't like cats. They see all cats are the same. Okay, dogs have, every dog isn't the same. Every cat is not the same.
Unforgiveness, eh?
Yes. You can't see nothing is, yes.
Can trap us in negative
Right.
law representation,
Yes.
right?
I mean, just because a dog may have, let's say it bit you, that doesn't mean every dog is going to do
No,
that.
every dog, yeah,
No,
everyone.
everyone they're not all the
they're all
same.
of the devil, yeah.
They're not all the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's, yeah, so if I see things that way. I know that yes, we know the capability of what different people or animals or different could do, but everybody's individual.
Right, so
Nobody's
in other
the
words, we have to judge according to individuals,
Yes,
not a group.
yes, and that's how I get through it, with not, lumping everybody in the same way.
So what that tells me is I have to still continue to grow and learn to be a better discerner of character, not to judge, but to understand how to deal. For example, like we, talk about Twilight, right? Mm-hmm. Where
That would be our cat.
Mm-hmm. Where she came from a hard place in life, but when you tried to help her, she scratched you.
Right.
And then you gave her a look like, I'm trying to help you, and you still appear scratched. But again, when we talked to the shelter she came from, whatever she came from was causing her to be as a defense mechanism.
Right. Well, and plus I understand cats, and I understand animals, so I do realize that they when they're scared, they do certain things. And so she's scared. She doesn't know me from anywhere. And whatever happened to her prior to me, maybe, just brought back a memory of me coming up. So she's just trying to defend herself, not knowing I'm not here to hurt you. So I had to get her to know me and realize that I'm here to help you. And eventually, I can pick her up. I can do whatever. It doesn't matter, because she knows me now. And that's the same thing with people. Sometimes people have been hurt. So you get in a relationship with someone who's been hurt and hurt and hurt and hurt. So yeah, they might get in a relationship with you, but they're coming with their baggage, coming with their hurt. So you might have to be patient and help them understand that I'm not here to hurt you, I'm here to hurt. And it might take time. So you may have to massage that and do things and show them, but eventually they should be able to come out of it if they could see that, oh, okay, this person. And then they have to learn trust. You have to learn, sometimes people will forgive, but they have to learn to trust, because the trust was broken. So has anything like that ever happened to you where you felt like you had to regain trust?
Yeah, you do it to me all the time.
Oh, whatever. Whatever.
I learned, yeah. Especially when, like, being on time, I gotta forgive and let it go. Okay, I'm trusting that she's gonna be on time today, this week, and then it don't happen, then I gotta do it all over. Just having fun. But anyway, I'll say this. Just say this. So we got a couple minutes left. I think that I guess I'm trying to figure out how to say this. I'm gonna use the Bible says, "Honor your father and mother that may be well." Why? Because they're your first line of leadership, and usually, so it may be well because they're the first persons who communicate whether you're loved or you're accepted or not. Like, just a child growing up. Of course, we all believe in ourselves that we want to be loved and we're good enough to be loved, but sometimes our behavior of not forgiving people and harboring unforgiveness sometimes tells us that we don't know we're loved yet. Mm-hmm. So you may tell somebody, yeah, I know I'm loved and all that, but if you harbor and you're having a hard time letting stuff go, you may not realize that's what you're saying, but your actions and your attitudes is that's what you're saying.
Right.
And I think that in order to truly learn how to forgive and let stuff go, because I think the biggest issue is we can, whatever happened to us, like let's say through a parental experience or through a close friend experience or relationship, where what you told me was I wasn't valued and I wasn't loved. Mm. So now, because my first truth told me I wasn't, I go into life expecting everybody else to not see my value.
Right.
And I think that we gotta now get back to just knowing that we see our value through God's eyes, not people's eyes.
Right. Basically, you gotta know for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, yeah.
Because I think that's what drives our expectations, mm-hmm. of always expecting other people to hurt us. Because the first person I believe will value me didn't.
Right.
So yes, that's over. But because I can't let it go, because I'm going into life. Because you got close to me, I would have thought you would have sold my value, you would have loved me the way I should have been loved, and you didn't. So now I'm automatically expecting somebody else, right, to not see my value.
Mm-hmm. Especially if it's a parent who does that. That really tags you pretty deep.
Yeah. And I think that and a lot of times, because what I've realized is that the more we know we're loved, the more willing or the easier we are able to work through unforgiveness.
Yes.
But I think that if we're not convinced yet, it's hard, because it's like I'm trying to outwork this idea that nobody really cares about me, nobody truly values me.
Right.
And so I just think that the more we know that we're loved by God and the more we know who we are through His eyes and not through man's eyes. And that's why I really say that's the danger of idolatry. And so I'll finish off with this and then get your thoughts and we'll close here. The thing about idolatry is this. What exactly is idolatry? For example, you can make your job an idol, you can make people an idol, all of that. Mm-hmm. But so there's nothing wrong with having jobs, people, friends in your life. But the problem is when you put an unhealthy expectation on them. In other words, what I'm expecting to get from God, I'm expecting you to meet that need.
Right.
That's really what idolatry is. It's now I moved from you being a resource to the source. So because now you became the source and my source let me down, then therefore I'm heartbroken.
Right.
But where I can be hurt but not injured. But a lot of times when you make people your idol, you get injured. But when you make them a resource, you can be hurt but never injured. And I think that we got to get back to a place of making God our source of our identity and our value and know that we love by faith so that we can now forgive by faith.
Right.
And go from there. So any other thoughts on that? And then we'll...
Just basically what you just said, you have to get to know God and realize that He's always with you. So you're not. He's the one that's gonna heal you. He's the one that's your friend. So if you're not looking, like you said, to people to fulfill this love and all that, and you know that God is always there. If you have a peace about that, then the people who love you, the people from the outside, that's like icing on the cake. Mm-hmm. So, but if it's not there, it's not so detrimental that I just can't live anymore. So that should be icing on the cake when you have the people to love you.
Yeah, good stuff. So, in conclusion for today's session, this is what I'm gonna say. This this our time. So we had good conversation. So we finished off with just really knowing that you're loved by God. So that's why I say stay tuned, because our next episode, because this already get heads up, I'm gonna tell you. So our next episode we're gonna have is I'm bringing Mike back because we're gonna conclude in talking about people who are mad with God. Because if I'm going to expect God to be my source of my identity and my value system, I can't be mad at the one I'm looking to bring me through.
Right.
So we're going to have a good conversation on that. All right. Well, God bless you. That's our time for this week, and we'll see you here next week.
Thank you for joining Pastor Wayne Powell Sr. for this edition of Relationship Wednesday. We hope you enjoyed this episode of After I Did. Let's keep the conversation going by leaving your questions and comments in the chat. We also invite you to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you are reminded to join us next Wednesday as Pastor Wayne continues this discussion of After I Did.